Sonic the Hedgehog as a series is often criticized for its plethora of side characters, many of who seem to be introduced just for the sake of some sort of contrived plot point, only to be never seen again after said point is resolved. The game we are looking at today takes a look at two such characters, one being Sonia the Hedgehog, Sonic's sister? In the hit cartoon Sonic Underground. Okay, that show sucked, really don't watch it, it's pure crap. The other is Silver the Hedgehog, first introduced in Sonic 06 and whose head looks strangely like a marijuana leaf. As horrible as the source material for these two characters is, perhaps this game redeems them a bit. Perhaps it makes them a bit better and gives them a bit more life than they were in their original forms. So come on today as we look at the S Factor, Sonia and Silver, a ROM hack of Sonic 1 for the Sega Genesis. Welcome to Stuff We Play, home of everything weird and retro. If that sounds cool to you, why not subscribe? And today, for Hacktoberfest, we're looking at the S Factor, Sonia and Silver, featuring Sonia the Hedgehog and Silver the Hedgehog. This game seeks to change the perceptions of these characters and maybe do something a bit different than your average Sonic game. So let's go on and dive right into it. Wow, I hit my peach. The story of the S Factor is simple. You have to go stop Dr. Eggman Nega, and if you don't know who that is, let me explain. Eggman Nega was a character first introduced in the Sonic Rush series. Think of him as Dr. Eggman, but from an alternate dimension. He's evil, and much like his regular counterpart, he's turning animals into robots, and that's bad, so we have to go stop him. Thankfully, this game doesn't get hung up on plot, but then again, it is a Genesis game. Now, for the presentation of the S Factor, this game is beautiful. From the moment you boot it up, you get given an actual full MP4 type thing of Sega's modern logo. It's incredible. I don't know how they squeeze it onto a Genesis cartridge after being given the logo of Sonic Retro, which is a great source for all things Sonic, and Aquaslash and Pals, who are the fine folks who made this here ROM hack. You're given the very beautiful looking title screen, which by the way, you can actually change the theme of. And from there, you get given a character selection with the two titular characters. The zones here are so beautiful and varied, from the casino night-like Ringland to the beautiful shores of the first zone in the game, to the whiteness of White Blaster Zone. Yeah, it's just really white, but really cool looking. Perhaps my favorite looking zone here would be Chaotix Street Zone. Look at those flags in the background. They're so fluidly animated, and it's kind of amazing that this is being pulled off by a 16-bit console from 1989. Kind of reminds me of the first time I saw the bouncing ball demo on an Amiga. Now, what's also really cool is how the game can change up its look, particularly during boss fights. However, how does the game control? And that depends on what character you play as. Both of them control very well. First things first, you have Sonia. So Sonia is pretty fast, kind of like Sonic is, except she can do this spin attack that can break through objects such as spikes and rocks, meaning that there are some paths that are blocked by certain objects that Silver can't get through that she can, thus meaning that both of these characters have different routes that they can take through each stage. Silver, on the other hand, is a lot slower than Sonia. However, he can use his telekinetic abilities to catch bullets shot at him by other enemies and throw them back at him. He can also float in the air for a bit. I do notice that on occasion, whenever he has to go through a loop or whatnot, he doesn't quite have the momentum to do so, and it really just becomes kind of a pain at that point. On the flip side, his floating does make some stages a lot easier and gives him access to certain alternate paths that Sonia cannot reach. Overall, it's just really cool, and I love how different these two characters are. Also of note though, is there is a third character named Scourge the Hedgehog, and Scourge is pretty much just Sonic, but green. And also for some reason he's not playable unless you use the level select code in the newest beta. I don't know why. He was available in the previous versions of the game, but not the newest version. I guess technically we just have Sonia and Silver here. And furthermore, the stage design is really built around accommodating both of their play styles. Both of them can have different paths, but you can still get a sense of speed, but there's all through all these stages until we reach the end, but I'll get to that in a sec. Now, you know I mentioned the boss fights to that really cool second form thing? As cool as that looks, it does cause this game to have kind of a similar problem to another game I reviewed, Sonic Winter Adventures, where the boss fights tend to drag on a bit. This is worst in White Blaster Zone Act 3, where you have to go against 3 bosses, 2 of which seem to be Metal Sonic and 1 which seems to be Metal Knuckles. And as cool as that sounds, all 3 of these bosses overstay their welcome, have annoying patterns, and I'll be honest, they aren't even that hard to fight against. They just take too long, they're boring, they're dull. Furthermore, I should mention that in the final zone of the game, the poo kind of hits the fan a bit. Now I have two main complaints with Destron City, which is the final zone of the S Factor. First things first, Destron City, I mean really, like, what is this? Some sort of contrived fan fiction? You might as well just call it Evil Omega Depression Zone Z. What's stupider than the name is the level design. Now Act 1 and 2 have some kind of Metropolis Zone-esque enemy placement, however Act 3 is really what sucks. Act 3 is Green Hill Zone. And you're probably saying, but Green Hill Zone is amazing. Yes, but this is all 3 acts of Green Hill Zone combined into one, except there are no rings and all ring capsules have been replaced with Eggman Mega Capsules, which kill you in one hit. Furthermore, if you take too long to get through any of these acts, and by the too long I mean more than a minute, the game will kill you. I'll be completely honest here, I was not able to get through Green Hill Act 3 without the screen blacking out on me and dying immediately. It's a level design that's so poor it reminds me of Sonic the Lost Worlds. It was not designed with the playstyles here in mind, and that's also why I used a code to get to the final boss. By the way, the level select code from Sonic 1 works perfectly here, and the final boss is exactly the same as the one in Sonic 1. Now, there is one more thing I should mention here, and that is the Chaos Emeralds. Now, instead of having Sonic 1 special stages, this goes for a completely new approach in a zone called Emerald Chase, which from the looks of it is based briefly off of Labyrinth Zone. Now, what Emerald Chase is in concept is you're given a set of challenges to complete. Once you complete said challenge, such as destroying a certain number of enemies, collecting 50 rings, etc., you get given a Chaos Emerald. As cool as this is in concept, in execution, it's rather boring. I didn't go for all the Chaos Emeralds. Yes, I know there are super forms in this game, but it just wasn't worth it. Now, before we finish up with the S Factor, there is one more thing I need to touch on, and that is the music. Now, normally I want to give a brief aside to the music in these reviews, because normally it's just taken from other Sonic games or other Genesis games, but S Factor is different. While yes, there is some music from other Sonic games, a lot of these zones have completely original music. In fact, there's a different piece of music for every act of every zone. Perhaps my favorite piece in this game would be the music from Ringland Act 1, which uses the actual ring effect in the composition, and it's so weird and wacky and cool, but it really gives the game a character of its own. And I guess that's just kind of the best way to describe the S Factor. Despite its shortcomings, such as the game crapping itself in the last couple of zones, it really has its own style, its own feel. It has a bit of a slower pace than your average Sonic game. It's built around that. It's kind of more of a Sonic game that you take in a bit. So even with its shortcomings, while I can't recommend trying to play this game to completion or going for all the Chaos Emeralds, I can definitely recommend giving it a try. But you know what, perhaps I'm just rambling at this point. So why don't you leave your opinions on this game if you've played it down in the comment section below, and while you're at it, why don't you A, leave me suggestions for games to review in the future, and B, subscribe to Stuff We Play for more great content like this. So with that, thank you very much for watching, stay classy, and I'll see you next time.